That's a great ball. Oh! Sent him. It's another one! Oh, it's a goal and a half that. Wow! So, as you've just seen there was some old footage from last season's Worksop Town. Of course, they stormed to the Northern Premier League East title. Yes, welcome back to a new video. It is a sit-down video. Once again, of course, we're leading up to the new season. It's looking good. And so, like I say, we'll be doing loads of vlogs, loads of week vlogs. And today, we're doing a sit-down video with, and I say we, but me and this guy right here. This is Robbie Holmes. He does a lot of non-league content, a lot of stuff around Northwest as well. So go check him out. He's a great guy, great channel. Go subscribe to him. Yes, so we're doing our Northern Premier League predictions. We're going to be predicting who's going to win the league, who's going up by the playoffs, and who is going to get relegated. So sit back, enjoy it. If you think any otherwise, leave comments down below and let me know who's going up into the National League. So without further ado, take it away.
There you go. Robbie, it's great to have you on the channel. It's your debut. How are you, mate?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Pleasure to finally meet you and be on the channel. Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
It has been a long time. I mean, we've agreed to do this ages ago, and we've finally got around to it. But the season's around the corner. Are you excited for it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting season. Looking at the teams who have come up, teams who have come down. It's a difficult league to predict, but we're going to give it a go.
Oh, definitely. Do you think that literally step 3 now is probably the toughest league in non-league football right now?
Yeah, probably. Looking at some of those teams that have come into it, yeah, it's the quality is as good, if not better, than I've ever seen it at this level.
Oh, definitely. Well, let's just dive straight into it because I think we've got so many teams we need to get through. But I think we better start with who's coming numero uno, and you've gone with.
So first position won't be a shock. Macclesfield.
That's what
I guess you'll be the same.
Yeah, I think when you look at I think it's a credit that they've come back into football. I think they've done things the right way. Yes, they've got money, but personally, I think they've done it in the right way. And you're right. I think they are going to be a team to watch. Especially, I mean, you've seen them in the West last season. They just steamrolled everyone.
Yeah. So they're a team that I'm very, very familiar with. I worked with them for a bit when they were in the Northwest counties. And look, it's not even just about budget with them. It's about the sort of the gravitas of the club, the name of the club. That it means the sort of players they can attract, the area they're in, the recruitment team they've got. Everything is just, it all points towards them going up again relatively comfortably. I don't think anybody will really could be wrong, but I don't think anybody will really lay a glove on them again. When I watched them in the Northwest counties, even, I was saying at the time their team's good enough to probably be bottom half National League North, and they've just strengthened again and again and again. They've brought in a raft of new signings already this summer, and I'm sure they'll add to it as the season goes on. And it's one of those where, if they don't get it right initially, they'll just keep adding players and picking up players until they do. And yeah, I just don't see anyone touching them.
Neither do I. I think that, like I said, there will be a team to watch this season. Whether they could potentially do well in the cup, in the FA Trophy, do well in the FA Cup, that could remain to be seen. I mean, I'd like to see another non-league club have a great run in those competitions. So definitely Macclesfield, number 1. So playoffs then. Who have you got in your playoffs?
So it goes down to 5th, doesn't it? So it's 2nd to 5th. So in 2nd place, I've got Bamber Bridge. 3rd, I've got Hyde United. 4th, I've got Matlock Town. And 5th, I've got FC United of Manchester.
Go FC United. Oh, so with my predictions, with my playoffs, I've gone 2nd, Hyde United. I've gone 3rd, Worksop Town. 4th, Guiseley.
Right.
And 5th, Bamber Bridge. I think we've sort of jumbled ours up, but you think FC United? You think that those teams are going to be in the playoffs? You think?
Yeah. So I look at it and I look at last season, and look, FC United is one that may or may not make it. I'm I've got a bit of bias because it's a Manchester team, and look, I see them as one of those that I see them as a big club at that level, just because everything surrounding them, the fan base, the ground, all that sort of stuff. I've visited them quite a few times. I know the guys there relatively well, and I do just sort of want them to do well. So that's hence why I put them up there. I predicted them third last season and they came eighth, I think. So, but they show in spells that they're a good team. Neil Reynolds is a very good manager. They play really good stuff. And yeah, I think they could be on for playoffs despite some of the other teams in and around it. I'll touch on a couple of the others. Matlock, they have been one of those teams that are just consistently in and around the playoffs, and I just would not be surprised if they're there again this season. Hyde United, painfully unlucky to miss out last time out. Had a very, very good season, especially at the start, but just sort of fell away a bit. And then Bamber Bridge, they're my pick to actually win the playoffs. Because again, yes, I know they were so unlucky last time out. That Isley Buckley Ricketts 90th minute goal, was it? Against Warrington, that saw them just miss out. So I think they'll sort of be spurred on to go again and win the playoffs. So yeah, that's my playoffs. What? Any reasoning behind yours in particular, or?
So I've got Hyde to finish second, just like you. I mean, I saw them a couple of times last season where I thought they played some good stuff. I saw them play Buxton in the FA Cup, showed a great account of themselves. A little unlucky not to knock out Buxton, really. I saw them against Belper, and that was probably, at the time, South Shields. I think they were 1 and 2 at the time. Hyde were probably the closest challengers, and they were second best to Belper, who were fight. I mean, they were going to go down at that point, but they still showed some good fight. But Hyde would be second. I think they would get to the final. I think they would lose to. I mean, I could see. Well, I've got Worksop to finish third. Now, I saw Worksop a lot last season. I was impressed. They were a bit like Macclesfield, where they steamrolled a lot of the opposition. The likes of Liam Hughes, they've just signed Paul Green, ex-Donny, brilliant player. Some ex-National League players, Terry Hawkridge being one, ex-Lincoln City. I've got them to win the playoffs. I think.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, obviously, I don't know as much about the eastern side of things. So obviously, I saw Worksop did very well last season and comfortably won their league, but I never really know with teams sort of coming up where to put them. I mean, we'll get into it in a bit. I've put Worksop relatively high, but I don't. I could be proved wrong on this, but I just don't see them. They might need a season to consolidate before they do go up, but they are definitely a club on the up, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them up there, like you say, this season. They've not, definitely next season.
100%. I think when you mentioned Matlock, I've actually got them to just miss out, finish seventh. I saw them a couple of times last season. I know they had the managerial change and they had some good momentum, but they fell away. But again, a club that have been putting themselves about to get into the National League. I think they will do. If it's not going to be this season, potentially next season. I think, we mentioned, it's always this league's getting harder and harder with these clubs coming down from the National League and having a bit of money, but definitely. But that's our playoffs. So who do you think then? So 6, 7, and 8, who's going to just miss out on the playoffs?
So for me, 6, 7, and 8, in order it goes Marine, Gainsborough Trinity, and then Worksop, as we just mentioned. Then I think Marine, they surprised me last season. I had them all the way down lower mid-table, and where did they end up finishing? It was top 10, I believe.
Yep.
If not like 8, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they did really well for their first season in the Premier Division, and I think they'll build on that again. They've got a great setup. They're a really good club. Just one that I like. I've seen them a few times. And yeah, I just think they're one that could, again, sort of challenge in that sort of playoff region, if not this season, and the season after. Gainsborough Trinity, again, they shocked me so much last season, having the season they did. Clayton Donaldson on fire, scoring 22 goals. I think he's left now for Farsley Celtic, if I believe.
He has, yes.
So they might just take a little step back, and then works up. We just touched on them then. I think it'll be a season of consolidation for them, despite how well they did last season, before they really push on again, probably the season after this one.
Well, I've got Gainsborough to finish 6th. I think they'll just miss out. I think, as you've touched on there, losing Claire Donaldson to Farsley Celtic, I think is a big loss. I mean, he's a terrific player, a player that probably should be playing in the National League. Given that I believe he's 37, 38, he can still score goals. It's crazy. I've got, as you say, Matlock to finish 7th, as we just touched on, and 8th would be Radcliffe for me. But the management have come in, ex-Chester. They brought in Jordan Hume, who, proved it for Altrincham in the National League North and, of course, in the National League. I think they could be a bit of a dark horse. I think Radcliffe, if teams fall over each other, they could be one of those teams that could actually make it into the playoffs, if they have a bit of a good run towards the final end of the season. But, yeah, this is all hypothetics, isn't it, mate?
It is completely. And once you get down to this sort of this mid-table section, if you will, even just sort of 5th to almost the relegation places, it's anybody's game, because at this level of football, you just cannot call it whatsoever. Literally anybody can beat anyone at this level of football. And it's just so, it is completely hypothetical. You're picking names out and just putting them in at random. It's almost you're going off vibes.
Oh, definitely.
Basically with some of these. But yeah, I'm not as sure on Radcliffe. I picked them to do pretty well last season, and they didn't do as well as I thought they were going to. I thought they'd be playoffs, but they just missed out. So what are you saying for this sort of next bracket? Is it 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th? Should we go?
Yeah, go on then. So 9th, I've got Marine, just because I think, given that there's so many teams in that bracket, I think it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be a lot tougher. We saw it last season. There was probably 5 or 6 teams that could easily finish in the playoffs, and ended up just missing out because of just so close. 10th, FC United Manchester. I think again, the club that could threaten the playoffs, but what I've seen, they've always seemed to just fall away at the final hurdle. 11th would be Ilkeston. Again, big changes. With the owner going to Scunthorpe United, leaving that, I think they'll be mid-table. I think they had a solid season last season. And 12th would be the first team from the National League North, would be Bradford Park Avenue for me. I think, again, another season, I think they'll be just consolidate and, go again. What have you got?
Yeah, so for 9th, I've got Guiseley. They really disappointed me last season. I thought they were at least going to make some sort of a challenge for playoffs, considering they'd come down. But there seems to be a bit of a deeper malaise going on there after they've come down. Obviously, it wasn't long ago that they were playing in the National League, not just the National League North. So they've fallen down a fair way. So I just think, again, they finished 13th last season, I think. And I just don't see them challenging. The only real basis I have for that is just that there seems to be this sort of, not rot setting in, because I don't think it'll go that far, but I think just this accepting of mid-table, and yeah, they'll stagnate a bit sort of around these sort of mid-table positions before maybe either going up or going down. You never know. With when clubs come down, they could bounce up in a few years, or it could get even worse potentially for them. But 10th, Radcliffe. I'm not really sure about them, to be honest. I predicted them, like I said, that they'd have a decent finish in and around the playoffs, and they didn't, just missing out. So, and the league has got stronger, as we say. So I think they'll just be sort of mid-table. Bradford Park Avenue in 11th. Like you, I think they'll take a season to maybe acclimatise at this level before looking for promotion back up to National League North. And then 12th, I've gone Warrington Rylands for no other reason than I didn't know where to put them.
I mean, to be fair to their neighbours, going into the National League, fair play to them. But yeah, Warrington. I mean, I like them as a club. I think when I didn't mind their ground when I went there in July last year when we were baking hot. But yeah, I think I think you're right though. We are getting to that end of the table now where teams could have half decent seasons. Or it could be just, you could be right. They could be like, we'll set for mid-table. So 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. Who have you got them?
13th, I've gone for Stafford Rangers. Again, another team that I picked to do relatively well last season, and they disappointed me. They finished 12th, and they look like a mid-table club to me. And I don't think nothing to me about them says that they're any better than the clubs above them challenging around playoffs. So it just feels like a mid-table season again. 14th, Workington, obviously a team that I saw a lot of last season, mainly at Clitheroe's expense in the playoffs, but I won't go too much into that. But they're a good team. They play good stuff. They've got a settled squad as well. The only worry I have with Workington is that they're based in the Lake District, and it's going to be difficult for them to attract and furthermore retain players at that level, because it's just such a long way from basically everyone else at this level. You don't want to be driving to Workington for your home games when you could go to,
Not on
I
a
don't
Tuesday
know,
night, do they?
yeah, exactly, somewhere else for the same money. So I'm thinking they might sort of consolidate. I don't think they'll have any relegation fears because they are a good side. They were, if it wasn't for Macclesfield, I think they might have won the league last season. Maybe League would have had something to say about that. But you often find that when teams come up into this league, they don't tend to struggle initially. They'll sort of go mid-table at first, and then if they're going to come down, it'll take a few years, which is what we're seeing now with some of the teams at this level down the bottom end. So yeah, I think Workington will be fine. 15th have gone Ilkeston. Again, as you mentioned before, owner going to Scunthorpe, all this sort of stuff. I just think it might rock the boat a little bit. I don't think they'll really have the guile to sort of challenge anywhere above lower mid-table. They'll be comfortable enough. And then do you say down to 16th, was it?
Yeah.
Ashton United. Bit of a weird one last season. They started well, had the 3-point deduction, and then just sort of fell away. And again, just one of those teams that I don't think they'll do anything, but I don't think they'll have any sort of relegation worries. It's so difficult to call.
So it's funny because at 13th, I actually gone with Stafford Rangers. So at least we've got one that's near enough that we've gone with the same one.
Well, and Macclesfield as well.
Well, no, that's true. Yeah, Macclesfield. Forgot about that. But yeah, Stafford, I mean, I saw them at Matlock last season when they were actually top of the league and had a great start to the season. But I think, given that I'd say the last 2 or 3 years where they, if it wasn't for COVID, they would be playing in a lot, they'll be playing probably in the West or the Midlands League. They should have gone down a few years ago, but like I say, COVID saved them. So, but you're right. I think they would be a mid-table side. 14th, a club that's moved back into the Northern Prem, Baseford United, who were in the Southern Premier League last season. I think they'll comfortably be all right. I mean, again, that Nottinghamshire area, which I know quite well, good hotbed for football clubs. I think recruitment, I think they'll do okay. Again, I don't think they'll be setting the world alight Baseford, but no, I think they'll comfortably survive. 15th, Whitby Town, a club that, again, they've been hovering around that kind of relegation area for a few years, but I think they'll be, again, a bit like Baseford, not pull too many trees up, but I think they'll be okay. Again, a ground that I'd like to tick off at some point, even though I'd have to pack an extra layer. And then 16th, Warrington Rylands, probably the same reason as you. I don't know where to put them, so I thought I'd put them mid-table.
Yeah. Rylands are a bit of a weird one because when they came up, they seemed to have a bit about them in terms of, I think they had quite a bit of a budget, but it just seemed to sort of fall away a bit. I don't really know why. But yeah, I don't see them. I see them potentially as one of those that will probably just make their way slowly back down in the next few years. But looking at the sort of what do you want to do now? 18th to
So we've got 17th to 17th to the relegation zone then.
yeah. So is it just 17th and 18th before we hit relegation zone? So
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
17th, I've gone for Whitby Town, mainly because I think this is their 26th consecutive season in this league.
Yeah.
And to me, that just screams mid-table team that's never going to go up, never going to go down. And where else do you put them other than pardon?
The Ipswich Town of non-league, not going up, not
exactly. Down. Just to me, that screams that they're just going to be lower mid-table. And then 18th, I've gone Lancaster City. Again, since they came up, they've been sort of perennially mid-table. And with the strength of the league, I think it'll just force them down a nudge. I believe they were 11th last season, 10th, 11th, something like that. I'll have to check back, but I know they're around those mid-table spots. But obviously, with the teams coming into it, I think it will just force them down that little bit. But I don't think I know I've put them 18th, but I don't think they'll be. They might have a bit of a scare, flirt with a relegation zone sort of thing, but I think they'll just about stay up.
Well, surprisingly, I've gone 17th with Lancaster City. Again, they're a ground that I'd like to tick off at some point. There's a lot around that area that I'd like to tick off. Yeah, Workington being one, I said in a previous video, Lancaster being one as well. But yeah, I think 17th, you're right. I think the strength of the league is getting tougher and tougher every year. And I think they are a club that maybe in the next 12 to 18 months could be a side that's fighting relegation. Like I say, you look at the teams that are coming up. I think it's getting tougher. Potentially if Leek were to win the league, there's Witton Albion, as you said, in the Midlands. There's Calcer, in the East, Hebburn, and teams like that. I think, as you say, teams have got a budget. Teams are going to be wanting to get into the National League at some point. So we'll see. We'll see how they do. And 18th, I'll go with Atherton, a club that, I think they've always been certainly the last 2 or 3 years, they've been fighting relegation. I didn't mind the ground when I went there a few years ago when they played FC United. They're lovely people that work for that club. But it could be their time where they'll just be hovering above the relegation zone, and we might see them in the West at some point in the next few years. But yeah, they'll be the ones I think they're going to be saving themselves by the skin of their teeth, I think, here, Robbie.
Yeah, Atherton, I've visited there a couple of times. I'll touch on them a bit because obviously I've not mentioned before, hence you'll see where I'm going to predict them. But sadly for them, they are a great club, great people there. I've met them. I predicted them to go down last season. They just about survived, literally by the skin of their teeth, and I think they even did the season before that. So I think potentially it could be this season that they go down, but we'll touch on that in a sec. What's your relegation zone looking like?
So who's going down there? So it's a conundrum. So I think 22nd have gone with Mask. I think they're going to be struggling this season. 21st, Morpeth. Again, not looking good for the North East teams, I should say. 20th, surprising one, which I think, I've gone with Workington. I think just on what you've said about sort of the recruitment up that way, I think it's going to be a lot tougher for them to attract players. I think, as you've said, you know the club better than me. Again, a club that I'd like to go and see at some point. Probably make a weekend of it if I go up there.
It's a long drive. You'll need to.
I'll probably just get the train, mate, if I'm honest, as long as they're not striking. And finally, 19th, I've gone with Ashton United. Again, a club that's been, as you said, hovering around that area for a few years. So I think there'll be a few teams where I think they might just be dotting over that other line. So we'll see. What have you gone with them?
Yeah, so I'm going to go 19th downwards. Baseford United. No real basis for this, to be honest. I just had to put someone in 19th. I didn't know who, and it's one of the teams that I don't really know too much about. Other than the fact that they've moved over from the Southern League, which I think I don't know if it's a weaker level of football or not. I don't, I only really watch Northern football, so I can't really claim to know. But that's one of the ones I'm probably going to get horrifically wrong. 20th, I've gone Mask. I think I'd say they were lucky last season to stay up, but they weren't. They finished all right. I think they finished about 16th. But I think it might just be a case of second season syndrome with them. 21st Morpeth, they've been hovering around it for a few years now. Pretty much since they came up, really. I think they had a decent season when they came up. And then the COVID stuff happened, and then they've sort of been teetering around sort of lower mid-table. So I think, again, with the strength of the league, they might just sort of slip through the trapdoor. And then 22nd, we touched on them before. I'm going to go Atherton Collieries. They've just, like I said before, they've just survived the last few years by the skin of their teeth. And I feel like if they don't do anything to address it, again, I know I keep saying it, with how strong the league is, it could just push them right down to being the team that finished in last. But really, once you get to sort of these 16th downward positions, you could chuck them in any real order, and you might be right. It is just sort of guessing. You know, sort of what teams are going to finish lower mid-table. You don't know which ones, unless they've got like serious off-field issues or a much weaker budget or what have you, then you don't really know which ones are going to go down, which ones are going to stay up. So yeah, it's so difficult to call. So I'll probably look back on this in 9-10 months time, and yeah, be covering my eyes with how bad the predictions were. But it's again.
But we should react to it. Come end of season, we should react to these.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I reacted to mine last season that I did. I did a Premier Division predictions and a West Division predictions, and I got 4 right out of 42. So I'm hoping to do a little bit better than that this time round.
Definitely right. On your screen now is mine and Robbie's league positions. Let me know in the comments what you think, and see how, and you can rinse me and Robbie if we've got it wrong, and tell us why in the comments. But yes, Robbie, thank you so much for joining us here. I mean, it's an absolute pleasure for you to come and do the prediction video.
So yes, that is the Northern Premier League predictions. Hope you enjoyed it, because it was quite a fun one to do, and like I say, I want to do some more collabs with other YouTubers at some point. But yes, there will be another one very, very soon, so stay tuned. If you enjoyed it, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and yep, stay tuned.